ready?
Yes, sir.
Huh?
You get a chance to ask.
Everybody, we'll be starting in just a minute.
Okay.
Eric, are you introducing the folks making the present, or are they just self?
I can.
Instead of
Okay.
just telling me.
I believe I know who it is.
Huh?
Yes, I can.
That's why it's here.
Yeah, but I ain't got,
Are we good?
Huh? Oh, I
We're good? Everybody ready?
see it on there.
I know, but I'm.
Council ready?
I like went right on it. And, you know, I want it in my hand.
Good evening, everybody. It's good to see everybody here at the special council meeting of Mount Pleasant Town Council, Tuesday, March the 9th. It is after 5 p.m. The agenda has been published. We are in compliance with the 50% occupancy rule. And we're also live streaming on YouTube for this meeting. Item number 2 on the agenda is presentation by Charleston County Project Development Team regarding improvements to Highway 41. Mr. DeMora.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Good afternoon. I believe Brett Reidenbach here with the Charleston County Highway 41 project team is prepared to present. So, Rhett.
Thank you, Mr. DeMora, and good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of council. On behalf of Charleston County, Mr. Oyer, Mr. Turner, my name is Rhett Reidenbach. I work with the Revere Group, and we're on the HDR team, who's our lead consultant on designing the Highway 41 project, and we're very happy to be here today. So we're going to start off the presentation and go through just an overview of the project, talk a little bit about what its purpose and need is, talk about the history of the screening process, kind of where we were this summer, talk about a little bit of the feedback we got from the public, which, by the way, was astounding for this project, and go through what we're calling the revised concept and get some feedback from council. And I'm certainly here to answer questions and receive some feedback from you all. So to start off with, the overview of the project need. What you see on the left is a bar chart that talks about the volume of traffic that's on Highway 17. And in 2018, when the study team conducted some traffic counts, there were 71,000 cars that were on Highway 17 from Long Point Road up to Highway 41. The traffic projections show that we expect 91,000 cars to be on that section of Highway 17, and 55,000 of those cars are going to be on and off Highway 41. Those are significant traffic volumes. The 90,000 cars a day on Highway 17 rivals interstate volumes and are more than what we see on 526 today and east of the Cooper. The traffic miles even show beyond Porsche Bluff and head up to Carolina Park that there's 30,000 cars on that section of 17, and eventually in 2045, in that same time frame, there will be roughly 60,000 cars in that section of 17 also. So what's causing all that traffic? I think we all know really what we're dealing with. We're dealing with significant residential development in and around the corridor of Highway 41. You have Park West, Dunes West, master plan communities such as Rivertown, Planters Point, et cetera. Carolina Park is a large development in the northern end of the town. Of course, we're concerned about what happens along Clements Ferry Road because Clements Ferry is connected into Highway 41, and there's been a lot of coverage of the Cainhoy Plantation project, which is anticipated to have as much as 9,000 roughly dwelling units, has an opportunity to go down Clements Ferry Road or come down Highway 41 over the Wando Bridge. So at the end of it all, what we're trying to do is, fix the symptoms that we see out there today and that we expect will occur even at a higher level in the future, and that's relief the traffic congestion in and around the area. So we talk about purpose and we talk about need. The need is identifying the problem. That problem, as stated, is what I just said. A lot of traffic on a piece of infrastructure that can't support it. The purpose is the objectives that we're going to set, that we're going to measure our alternatives by to test to see if they address the problem. So the primary purpose, as you can see here, reduce congestion within the corridor, accommodate future traffic projections, pretty straightforward. Of course, there's some secondary objectives that we want to accomplish with enhancing safety throughout the corridor, improving the transportation system and community connections, provide bicycle and pedestrian accommodations, and minimize community environmental impacts. Those have not changed. That's been the purpose, and that's been the need of this project since it started back in 2017. And so July 2017 is really when the NEPA process kind of started in earnest. So what you're seeing here is a slide that describes 4 screenings that have happened since July 2017, when up to 12 alternatives were developed with public input. Those alternatives range from widening Highway 41, which is now known today as Alternative 1, to providing a road through Dunes West, down Bessemer, which is known as Alternative 7. There were a number of alternatives in between that included paralleling Highway 41 and a number of things, and I've reviewed some of that with the Transportation Committee last go-around that we met before the town of Mount Pleasant. But the screening process is meant to take the range of alternatives, gather feedback, narrow those down, gather feedback, change them as necessary, gather feedback, and ultimately come up with what the recommended alternative is. What you're seeing here in these 4 screenings, and that's happened over the course of the past 3 years, is really textbook NEPA process. The Corps even acknowledged to the county consultant team that this is really a case study on how the NEPA process can work, and how it can drive the alternatives, and how it can inform the decision makers on what's best for the public and how to best spend the money. So last summer, we were looking at really Alternative 1 versus 7A. And as a quick reminder, you see Alternative 1 on the left side of the screen, which is widening Highway 41 straight down the existing corridor through the Phillips community. High-speed road at 45 miles an hour, very traffic-focused and trying to get people from one end of the corridor to the next. The 7A alternative kind of took the same approach. Instead, it protected the Phillips community with a 3-lane section with 1 lane in each direction, a middle lane in the middle, and had a 4-lane road, 2 lanes in each direction with a center turn lane in the median, traveling around Dunes West Boulevard and essentially next to Bessemer and skirting the Park West community. And of course, last summer, we put forth Alternative 1 as the preferred alternative. And that was tested. It was put out there to the public. We gathered a lot of feedback, but the reasons why the consultant team recommended Alternative 1 is, number one, it had the greatest traffic time. It was the lowest, greatest improved traffic times. In other words, you get through the corridor faster down Alternative 1. Lowest overall project cost, less effects from noise, fewest impacts on wetlands, fewest impacts on Laurel Hill County Park. So that's what the consultant team used in the screening process to determine that Alternative 1 would be the preferred alternative brought in front of the public. Then we got the public comments, and man, did we receive some comments. These are record comments for a project that's been administered by Charleston County. I would say it's a record project for a DOT project in the Low Country. To get 3,000 comments, with 1,600 of them coming through the website, almost 70 people leaving voicemails on our hotline. We had 1,200 emails received, not to mention the petitions, 1,300 signatures from the Southern Environmental Law Center and Coast Conservation League. We had 2,000 signatures from change.org. We recently received a petition from the Holbrook Creek community, where it represents about 80 residents in that neighborhood, and numerous newspaper articles, a lot of TV coverage, op-ed pieces. It became a very passionate issue for a lot of folks in the Charleston area. We saw an incredible alliance amongst some of our better-known special interest groups. You know, the Coast Conservation League, Historic Charleston Foundation, Preservation Society of Charleston, the Heirs Property Preservation Groups, Charleston Moves. They all kind of coalesced around the Phillips community and really had an effective campaign to kind of, convey the message, which was this. Overwhelmingly, up into this public outreach, Alternative 1 was the leader in the clubhouse. It was overwhelmingly the alternative that got the most positive feedback. We saw that gap narrow to almost be even. We had 1,312 comments that were for in support of widening Highway 41, and we had just under 1,300 comments, 1,285 that were against it. But what we started to see was a shift in the thinking, in the support behind what was alternative 7A. And overwhelmingly, there was a group of people that supported that option as opposed to the 161 people that did not. And a couple of other alternatives received some comments, but essentially it was 1 and 7A that got the most feedback and most attention. So that's where we are today. We're kind of at now this 5th screening. Okay, we started with the 12, all the alternatives you could possibly think of, narrowed it to 3, changed those 3 to kind of, respond to comments, got it down to 2, got it down to 1, and now we're coming back to you with a revised concept that really, we think, takes the essence of the spirit of a lot of the comments that we received and applies it to something that's contextually sensitive, not only to the Phillips community, but also the other neighborhoods that are in this area of Mount Pleasant. So what we have here is a shot of kind of the revised concept, and I'll kind of start off with, the goals that we have for this revised concept are really focused on the purpose and need of the project, which I defined earlier as relieving congestion and handling the traffic, minimizing the impact of the Phillips community. I think the Charleston County was influenced and very well affected by the support the Phillips community received from the public and the pouring of outreach that we got on that. The other thing that we kind of looked at was we took a step back and we said, okay, there's a lot of other transportation projects that are happening around Highway 41. We were very focused on Highway 41 and the 4 lanes versus 3 lanes and what route between Dunes West and Highway 41. But we kind of took a higher view and said, you know what, Clements Ferry Road just got finished. The widening to Jack Primus is done. The DOT in Berkeley County are getting ready to embark on the next phase of Clements Ferry, which is going to take it from Jack Primus all the way to Highway 41. So there's a major 4-lane section of road that's going to be in place in the near future. And then the town is wrapping up its $10 million project of widening Park West and getting it up to Dunes West Boulevard. And so we looked at it from more of a regional connectivity perspective, and we realized that this 2-lane section of Dunes West Boulevard is really a bottleneck in that overall connectivity for the traffic system overall. So we looked at that and thought, we need to vet that a little bit more. And of course, this revised concept had to be different than 7A. And I know some people are calling it 7B, and that's fair. It's a variation of 7A, but at the end of the day, there are some really important design details that are different between 7B and 7A, and it really is because we're trying to be more sensitive to the neighborhoods and make sure that we can give them what they believe, what they deserve. And so look at this revised concept up on your screen, and we're turning the orientation of this exhibit different from what we showed you earlier. So the Wando Bridge is on the right side of the screen, Highway 17 is on the left side, Park West is on the bottom, and Highway 41 is the straight line kind of in between. You see the Phillips community kind of on either side of Highway 41. You see Dunes West, Park West, and Laurel Hill County Park highlighted on this map. And we're going to kind of go area by area and give you kind of a high-level explanation of why we think that this revised concept meets those goals that I stated earlier. So the first thing is this intersection at Dunes West Boulevard and Highway 41. The design you're seeing here is very conventional. It's a stoplight at Rivertown Park West, or at Rivertown Dunes West and 41. We have, if you're heading from the Wando Bridge, heading south towards 17, and you want to continue towards 17, at the stoplight, you can continue to go straight, just like you do today, and head down Highway 17. Or if you want to go to Dunes West or Park West, or take the bypass around through Laurel Hill around the Phillips community, you can turn left and take the new road around Dunes West and Park West and eventually down to Highway 17. There's a big difference between this and the other alternative. The other alternative funneled the Highway 41 traffic straight onto Dunes West Boulevard. It was a curve, so if you're driving down from the Wando River Bridge, you would actually curve straight and head towards the Dunes West neighborhood. So we were really funneling a lot of that traffic with that sort of geometry. In this situation, we have a conventional stoplight where people that leave Dunes West, at Harper's Ferry Road can continue south if they want. If the traffic seems to be a little tight going down Phillips, then they can turn left and go down Dunes West Boulevard and bypass around to the connection. So that's an important design detail that's different between, the past alternatives and this one. If you're leaving Dunes West and you're heading towards the Wando River Bridge, you got a free flow right that takes you to the bridge. We heard the neighborhood that was concerned that free flowing right would avoid the driveway that leads you to the Harris Teeter. So we were able to take another right turn, put it inside the intersection, and allow people that want to go to the Harris Teeter to go into a new driveway into that shopping center so they can still shop where they always have. The Rivertown intersection is very similar to what you have today with a right and a through and a left. And then, of course, to the south, heading towards the Phillips community, it narrows down to the 3-lane section that Phillips has really been advocating from the very beginning. So let's talk about Phillips for a second. In here on the right side, you see a blow up of what is essentially a 3-lane section, and to the left of it, you see the typical section. So the Highway 41 right-of-way is 75 feet wide, pretty much the stretch that goes through the Phillips community. The 3-lane section that we're recommending in this area, number one, provides safety for those residences that live in that area of Phillips, because it's single-family residential. There's driveways that go into a lot of the homes there. That center turn lane provides them an area of refuge where when they turn left out of their driveway, they can rest and make sure that they can get into an opening at their leisure. When they're coming into their driveways, they can get out of traffic, sit in the middle lane, and wait till there's an opening for them to turn left into their driveways. We've got sidewalks on either side of the pavement, some landscaping, crosswalks where we think it's appropriate at a couple of the local streets. But we're trying our best, and we pretty much are able to accomplish it the entire segment, to stay within the existing road right-of-way, to not have to take any property from the Phillips community. There is one exception that we have to deal with, and there's Bennett Charles Road, which is a little offset from Sun Chaser, which is a new street that provides for a newer development in the Phillips community. Bennett Charles needs to be fixed geometrically because it's offset, and we need to put it straight across from that existing road on the other side to clean up that conflict. And that's something the DOT is going to require us to do. So there will be a little bit of property in this alternative that we're asking to take from a parcel that's in the Phillips community. It's owned by Jesus and Armando Navarro, and so we'll have to reach out to them and see how that will work out. But there's a little bit of property we need, but for by and large, we're avoiding any right-of-way from the Phillips community. Going back to Dunes West Boulevard, which is really, I think, what a lot of discussion from this point on is going to be focused on. So Dunes West Boulevard is a very wide existing right-of-way. If you drive it, you see the white fence on one side, you see the road, but then you see the white fence on the other side that's pretty far away. Back in the original 1990 annexation and the plan and the rezoning for Dunes West and Park West, it was 100-foot right-of-way was set aside for a future 4-lane road. So it was acknowledged back then in the 90s that this road needed to be 4 lanes, that we should protect for the property to be there. And in the wisdom of the developer and the town, it's a good thing that it is set aside, because without the Highway 41 project and this revised concept or not, congestion on Dunes West Boulevard is inevitable. I mean, even today, turning out of Dunes West is a difficult thing to do at the entrance to where you go to play golf. So if you look at the typical section, that 100 feet is what we have to work with. We can put a very nice, low-speed, landscaped, pedestrian, multimodal, friendly piece of infrastructure in that existing right-of-way and not require any right-of-way from adjoining properties. Now, a big difference between Dunes West and Highway 41 through Phillips is if we do need property to like maybe get the slopes to work, to make sure the drainage works or whatever. We're dealing mostly with owners association property and not with individual homeowners. So we can do a slow road that's 35 miles an hour that meets the aesthetic quality that we know the Dunes West neighborhood is used to, and then provide for the additional capacity that really is inevitable that needs to occur in this section of the road. Moving down, safety is still a concern. You know, we want to make sure that we put, you know, traffic signals where they're warranted. This is Wando Plantation Way, which is the entrance road to Dunes West. You know, we want to make sure that there's signals where they're warranted, there's sidewalks, there's shared use paths, there's crosswalks, so the neighborhoods can cross safely from one side of Dunes West to the next. And so, you know, throughout the corridor, you'll see access improvements to each of the neighborhoods to make sure that they're safe and they meet today's standards. Now, this section of Dunes West Boulevard is a town of Mount Pleasant road. You know, it's something that, you know, you guys ultimately have control over approving the encroachment permit that will have to be sought at some point before the project can get built. So you guys will have a strong voice, if not the voice at the table, about what this road will ultimately look like and the design details around it. So I just want to make that point. There are a couple of townhomes neighborhoods that are near this section of road. And they may require noise barriers. And so very similar to 7A, there may be a noise impact to an enclave here and there that will require and will be justified to have a noise barrier. There was a concern on the 7A alternative that Dunes West had, which was its proximity to Kiln Court, which is a residential street that kind of dead ends very near the old alignment of 7A, and since we're following Dunes West Boulevard on this alignment, that issue goes away. This is purely trying to take the road that's there today and adding lanes on the outside of it and putting the bike and landscape facilities that we think meet the aesthetic quality out there that the neighborhoods will enjoy and benefit from within the existing road right-of-way. So we move down to the next section, which is getting us at the intersection of Bessemer, where Park West Boulevard is. And this is where the $10 million town project is now scheduled to end, and there's a roundabout traffic circle that's at this intersection at Bessemer. And so what we've done is align this intersection again where it's Dunes West and Park West is the through movement. So we're kind of encouraging that it's interconnectivity between Dunes West and Park West. And if you want to turn right, you can free flow right and start heading towards the bypass road. But if you're coming up from, you know, Highway 17 up the bypass road, you're going to have to stop to turn left, and you can have a free flow heading to Park West. So my point is, the way this is setting up right now, this concept is very Park West and Dunes West centric. It is serving, you know, most of the end of the trips that are in this corridor are people that are going home to Dunes West and Park West. The route around the Phillips community is almost a mile longer than going straight through 41. So just because we're leaving Highway 41 as a two-lane road with this third lane in the middle doesn't mean people can't still use it to go to Berkeley County or to go to the Wando River Marina or go to the shipyard. They certainly can, and we think most people will want to, until there's a time where the congestion on 41 gets to the point where the capacity is on this new road that we've just widened along Dunes West and the bypass road that we're doing over to 41, then you'll have an option. You know, when I go to work every day, I work in North Charleston, and I come down Hungry Neck Boulevard, and when I get close to Johnny Dodd's, I check Waze. And do I go 526 to, you know, get to West Montague, or do I go the Cooper River Bridge and go I-26? And this is going to be a similar decision that people are going to be able to make, you know, at either end of this Highway 41 improvement, to have an option to go one way or the other. So another point I want to make on this intersection here is Bessemer Road, which is a Park West neighborhood street that gets a lot of cut-through traffic and commuter traffic from both Dunes West and Park West, will return to a residential street. It's a two-lane road today. It will not be widened. It will dead end essentially right here near, at a cul-de-sac, right near this intersection. We'll provide a little connection point into the bypass road so they can get to their neighborhood. But the Joe Rouse intersection will drop significantly in traffic, and the Bessemer Road section will drop significantly in traffic in favor of this bypass street. And I know there's been a lot of conversation about Laurel Hill County Park, and Councilman O'Rourke, we appreciate you bringing, you know, the history and advocating for PRC, and we're aware of the 4 cultural sites and archaeological sites that are out there. I would love to show you a map, but we don't do that because we want to avoid the scavenger hunters and the bone collectors and those folks that are history buffs to kind of, you know, trespass on private property and try to, you know, touch and feel and see these things. But I'll tell you, this alignment is not going through any graves. There is a Native American cultural site that has been designated that's in this corridor, and this project will allow the opportunity to actually record, excavate, find the pottery, document its history, display it. The county has a really good track record of really, award-winning projects where they've went through and had a traveling educational display that was recognized nationally for the rice dike culture and the rice culture in the North Charleston, Ingleside, Woodstock area. And I think they would come to this opportunity with the same focus, that they would want to make sure the cultural site is protected and documented, and we do the best that we can. We want to minimize the land on Laurel Hill that we impact by being as much on the edge as we can. But the other thing that's important about this section of road, you know what it will never do? It will never support future development because it's going through a park. There will be no driveways, there'll be no grocery stores, there'll be no homes. There will be nothing on this section of road that will generate new traffic that will then go through, you know, the Park West or Dunes West communities. So we think really it helps us control a little bit, you know, some of the future traffic and the concerns of cut-through trips and that sort of thing by having this kind of road that goes through a park that it really is being protected. This intersection here, and this is kind of the engineer geek part of me, it actually is very well balanced on traffic. So that means that there's about an equal number of people heading towards 41 down the bypass as there are going to Park West, as there are going to Dunes West. And that really is a good thing. It's going to be an efficiently operating traffic control feature right there at this intersection. So moving on to the southern part of the bypass. And so again, if you're coming from Highway 17 and you're going home to Dunes West and Park West in the evening, you've got these 2 lanes that are going to peel off Highway 41, and they're going only in the northbound direction, taking you home as quickly as you can get home. You know, again, you know, the speed limit is something that that we have to study. You know, we're showing it in Dunes West Boulevard as 35 miles an hour, but makes sense in this segment to have it at 45 miles an hour because all you're doing is going through woods. You might as well get traffic flowing as quickly as possible. If you're coming south and you're trying to get south on Highway 41 from the bypass road, you have a signal at Cardinal Hill. It's not that great. You're going to be stopping. You're going to have to take turn left to get on Highway 41, and that's going to be your movement in the morning. And then you see, you know, the Holbrook Creek driveway, which is just to the left on this exhibit. You know, we're working with them. They would like to actually abandon Highway 41 in front of Holbrook Creek and Colonnade and make it their own frontage road between those 2 neighborhoods. And so we're certainly talking to them about, you know, ways we can improve safety and get people in and out of that neighborhood as this section of 41 to the south towards 17 widens. I failed to mention earlier, you know, the speed in the Phillips community, because I know I've been talking a lot about speed in these alternatives, trying to slow people down in the Dunes West Boulevard area, and then maybe speeding them up in this area through Laurel Hill where there's really no driveways and no reason to get off the road. The Phillips community, currently Highway 41 is 45 miles an hour. And I've heard Mr. Havisham mention to me the other day he'd like to see that speed slowed down to 35. And that's something that we can work with the DOT to see if it's something we can accommodate. It requires a speed study. It requires a change that the DOT is in control of and evaluating. So we certainly would like to explore, that option to see if it's something we could do in that section of 41 and accommodate it. But it's up to the DOT to kind of tell us whether that's an option or not. Evacuation routes, I know are a big topic of discussion. Highway 41 remains the evacuation route. There's no reason to change it. It's 2 lanes from Wando River Bridge all the way to 402 and all the way to 52 and 521. So having a 2-lane section here shouldn't have a negative impact on the evacuation coming out of town. So we don't expect it to need to change. It remains Highway 41, and you kind of keep it status quo there. So in terms of the highlights for the revised concept, the levels of service of Highway 41 and 17 are acceptable levels, so we meet the purpose of the project and the need for the project to address the congestion, and we meet the purpose. We minimize the impacts to the Phillips community. That regional connectivity I talked about from Highway 17 all the way down to 526 and at Clements Ferry Road is complete with 4 lanes, the entire length. It's consistent with what the overall master plan for Dunes West was contemplating at some point in the future. We're doing our best to be sensitive to all the neighborhoods around, and that means giving them a great street that's safe, that's multimodal, that's attractive, that meets the aesthetic standard that they have today. And of course, we have this one issue called budgets and costs and everything else, and unfortunately, we do have an upset to the budget with this revised concept. We're at $187 million for this. The original budget that was contemplated when the half-cent sales tax was voted on in 2016 was $130 million. So just from that comparison, it's $57 million over what was originally contemplated, which, as we all know, was just widening Highway 41 through the middle of Phillips and hoping to build something reasonable at 17. So this is a different project. It's a longer route. It's almost a mile longer around than it is if you went straight down Highway 41. It's got a whole new road that we're building on the bypass section through Laurel Hill, which we don't get the benefit of the existing asphalt that's there today on Highway 41 or some portions of Dunes West. So ultimately, it is a budget upset. If you compare it to what Alternative 1 was, and all these numbers have gone in a number of different directions, right? We had numbers for Alternative 1 and 7A when we met during the summertime, but I need to update those numbers. So if we put apples to apples, and I'm talking about program cost all in for widening of Alternative 1, that means the construction, that's the right-of-way, that's the mitigation, that's all the soft costs for engineering and construction, inspection, and all those sorts of things. Alternative 1 would have been $159 million. Compare that to 7A, including all the things I just commented on before. 7A would have been $191 million. So by comparison, this revised concept is about $4 million less than what 7A was, but it's still, $28 million more than what the updated numbers are for Alt 1, and it's still $57 million more than what the original House of Sales Tax budget had in it. So I think it's important, kind of in full disclosure, that everyone knows those numbers. So, where are we? So I told you where we've been. I kind of given you the highlights of where we are today. We're hoping to spend the month of March, working with neighborhoods, stakeholders, you guys, Charleston County, to figure out if this is the revised alternative that we want to put forth through NEPA. Now, this process on a project of this scale can take anywhere in total of 7 or 8 years to finally break ground, okay? We're entering in year 4 now, so we're about halfway to that point. We're not asking that the county or the town or even any of the private citizens or neighborhood groups, give up their right to continue to comment, give up their ability to continue to improve the design. There's another 3 years of just engineering and right-of-way acquisition and things that will affect ultimately some of the details that you see in this design, it's really kind of ironic that we're talking about those details at this level. We're not even into what they call 30% level. So what we're really asking is for county council and the town of Mount Pleasant to allow the county consultant team to continue the NEPA process and submit a permit application to the Corps. That Corps application, it's going to take us another 4 or 5 months to get it right. If everybody says do this, we got to give them some really specific drawings to show the impacts of the wetlands and the EJ issues and the noise and all the other environmental concerns and cultural resources we have at Laurel Hill, et cetera. So we got to put all that package together for them to review. They got to go out for 30 days for a public comment period. So this is all going to come around again, where the newspaper and the media is going to be covering it, and people are going to be writing letters to the Corps and calling the Corps, and there's going to be feedback back and forth. And then ultimately, we're hoping that by the summer of 2022, we can have right-of-way plans approved. So that's just under a year and a half from now, and we hope that by the summer of 2024, we're able to finish buying the right-of-way necessary to build this road, and we're talking about early 2025 construction. So there's a lot of time. There's still going to be a lot of community feedback, a lot of discussion about the overall details of this project, and this is kind of where we are today. We want to make sure we take what the Charleston County and the town of Mount Pleasant, the citizens of the area believe is the best alternative. It's a bit of a compromise. It's not requiring Phillips to bear the impacts of the widening of the road totally. It's not requiring Dunes West to bear the impacts of the widening of the road totally. There is a share in that impact, and we hope this is something that we can continue to have great discussion on. And I'm happy to receive any questions if you have them at this time.
All right, what we'll do is we'll have council ask questions, and then after council's finished, we'll have public comment, and then we have our monthly meeting at 6 o'clock. So why don't we start on this end and just work our way down if you have any questions of Rhett. Kathy?
Ed, thank you so much for presenting this. I have a couple questions. First of all, a lot of the feedback we're already getting are things that I'm not surprised. I'm the only council member that lives in Dunes West and uses these roads every single day. And for that reason, I went out of my way to meet with the Phillips community, asked the main leaders who are here tonight, I believe, to come to Town Hall. We had a great meeting. We had a meeting with the environmental groups with them. We had a meeting with Brad Morrison, our department manager for transportation. And one of the things we talked about was how can we do some sort of compromise rather than a 5-lane straight through like Alt 1A. How can we have some sort of compromise that was either the 3 lanes through, like 535, and still make it work, or perhaps even the idea of narrower lanes with a middle median, sort of like Coleman Boulevard, that would fit in the current roadbed. And so there's 2 things about this that bother me. One is, how did we get from that to this, which does look like basically we went back to 7A and just changed, instead of changing 1A, we changed 7A. Because I said at the time, when I heard that the feedback was mostly supportive of not doing 1A just the way it was originally laid out. And I agreed with that, by the way. I'd always advocated for 3 lanes through Phillips or 4 narrow lanes so we didn't have to take anybody's land. And so that it was more in keeping what they wanted. But how did we come from, because I said at the time, if we were to say, no, we're still thinking about 7A, and if we don't do 1A, we're going to do a revised version of 7A. And I said, well, you should see what the comments will be if you kept 7A alive at that point. So if this is 7B or it's some other number, it does create a whole new road. It does have a lot more impact throughout this other area. And the other thing is just the simplest thing of all is when someone's coming over the bridge, as you already pointed out, Rhett, if they're going straight down, they're not taking this turn. This turn bypass is actually part of the problem. It's a communication problem. Why would anybody, if they're going to go to 17 South, why in the world would they turn left and go? You said, well, Waze might take them that way. No, the Phillips community stretch is just slightly over a mile. And I go on it fairly often, and I've never seen it backed up, except when the Joe Rice light went in. And that's being corrected. That's being corrected with a continuous green. So, again, that's the first question, is how did we go from such a straightforward thing that could have been revised and work within that? At this point, the traffic counts of what will improve by adding the extra lanes in Dunes West and adding this whole parkway, which really addresses the people that live in Park West and Dunes West. It doesn't really address people coming down 41 anyway.
Yeah.
So this is almost like it's a different project. This is not the 41 project. This is almost like, okay, we've done. So the first question is, how do we get from there to here? And you've already kind of told us some things, but the second problem here is I know I understand there was someone from council that was involved in helping to figure out what the next step was. I wasn't called for that, and I was just curious, as the only Dunes West, do you know why? Why, as the only Dunes West resident who's been actively involved? Do you have any idea?
No, ma'am, I don't understand, I don't know that answer.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to know, though, that would be good to know. So I appreciate the information. I can tell you there has already been an uproar from Dunes West POA. I've gotten phone calls and emails, we all have, and a lot of residents are really up in arms because they just don't see why we're going to spend almost $50 million more for something that we don't perceive is needed right now. If you just want to do 434, which is interesting too, you went from 5 to 4 now. If you just want to do 434, do 434. But why add this whole other section that makes it look like you're trying to route traffic through the middle of these other neighborhoods? Just whatever traffic is there.
Yeah.
Mr. Chapman?
Yes, sir. And Mayor, I know people want to hear all the council members and give us all a big hand, but the more that happens,
Yeah.
the less time they have to be able to come and comment. So
Right.
we're glad to have you here, and it's great that you're here, and great to have your input. The point being that we want to try to get the reason for what this plan is all about. And one of the major issues is next month, we're going to be opening 4 lanes on Park West Boulevard, going into 2 lanes on Dunes West Boulevard. And as Mr. Reidenbach said, this project, whenever and whatever it is, will not be approved and built for at least 4 more years. There's going to be a lot more traffic, number one. Number two, I think I heard Mr. Reidenbach say that there is going to be meetings with the Dunes West neighborhood, Park West neighborhood, Rivertown neighborhood. Could you please let the audience know when these meetings are going to be?
Yes, sir. On the calendar right now, off the top of my head, I know we're meeting with the Dunes West Association tomorrow at 11, I believe. And then I think it's Park West Thursday, 2 p.m. And I know we've reached out to Rivertown. I don't know if we have that time set yet, but it will be in the near future. We're trying to get to all the neighborhoods in the next 7 to 10 days.
And that's critical. That's critical to get to the neighborhoods. And I had one conversation before this meeting where a resident in Park West didn't know these neighborhood meetings were going to take place. So I urge you to check with your neighborhoods about where and when the meetings showing this to the neighborhood are going to be held, and let your voice be heard. Thank you.
Mr. Santos?
Yeah, thank you very much. You know, I was here when y'all did the original show and really pushed one. And so now you're here again, and it seems like you're pushing another one. So
We are.
I realize that, you know, this is a county project. County's responsible for this project, not the town of Mount Pleasant. And so they put us in the spotlight here as if we're the ones that are going to be making this decision, but we know they're not. So I'm going to just be quick because everybody wants to speak. And I agree with what my colleague, Ms. Landing, has said, a lot of what she has said. I think there needs to be some study of her plan, of what she talked about. I liked it when she first came out with it. I think she should have been included in the discussion, as she said. It's sad that she wasn't, but I really think she needs to be, and they ought to really look at what she was talking about. Secondly, I heard for the first time that when you're talking about going through Laurel Hill, you're talking about going through Indian artifacts and all. So have you done any research to see if there are graves, Indian graves back there? I mean, that was the first question that hit me. I mean, you want to avoid going around various places, but you're going to go through an area that Native Americans might be buried. Have you checked that out? I mean, that's going to take a while to go through that to see if there are graves back there, or if, I think there's a lot more research to be done. I think I'm going to be dead before y'all build this road, I'll be honest with you.
No, I hope not. I hope not, Councilman.
Honestly. So anyhow,
might
I'm
mean
going to
I'm
leave it
dead,
at that.
too.
I'm going to leave it at that because I know my other colleagues want to be able to speak, and I won't take up any more time.
Can I address that real
Yeah,
quick?
please.
Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Santos. So Brockington Associates has done a cultural resources study on the site. They know that there are 4 known cultural resources located on Laurel Hill. The one that we are impacting in this right-of-way for the bypass road is there are no graves. It's scattered pottery and some other artifacts like that. And so, there will be the due diligence done beyond just what the initial report said. There'll be discussions with, the executive director of the PRC and the manager of Laurel Hill, and he's one of our stakeholder members. I can't remember his name. But we'll make sure that we're not impacting any graves in that area.
Mr. Rambo?
All right. First, I want to thank you, Mr. Reidenbach, for coming. I know your team does an excellent job, but you're guided by various councils and political groups, and I know that can be tough. The thing that I've heard most from folks is they feel like this is like a really sudden switch. So there was alternative 1, there was 7A. 7A was basically ruled out, and we're moving forward with alternative 1. There was public outcry, quite frankly, from a lot of people who don't live in that area, who are from all over, and they're activists or whatever, and influence, for some reason, can influence this decision. And then now, all of a sudden, it's like a bait and switch, and we're like, bam, we're right back to 7A, 7B, whatever the heck we want to call it. It's like, boom, here we go. It was what was ruled out 2 years ago, and now we're right back to it. And county council may give final approval of it like this month. And what if there was such a long comment period for the alternative 1 portion, what happened to it? I bet if you redid that based on alternative 1 or some version of alternative 1 versus this new plan, you're going to get overwhelming support for the alternative 1 because people felt like alternative 7 was dead and it's been randomly brought back to life. And so I feel their pain on that. I mean, it doesn't seem right to me that these outside groups can come in and influence all of these folks and where they live and the commute they do every day. So.
All right, Mr. O'Rourke?
Thank you. I don't want to repeat everything, but I agree with everything from that side of the table that was said, especially Jake's comments, actually. I want to talk a little bit about the park. You've mentioned a couple of times, and I guess we're all allowed to have our opinions, that there's minimal impact to the park. And even today, you mentioned the townhouse project, that there would be noise, and there might have to be sound barriers.
That's correct.
To me, noise affecting a place like Laurel Hill is kind of important. And it's just this peaceful place, and it's not James Allen County Park. It's that's why the park system's had it for 11 years, and there isn't a water park, and there isn't all of these things that have a lot of people there. In Charleston County Parks, the site dictates what we do. We don't dictate what we do. This site is a cultural heritage site. It's like McLeod Plantation without the big house or the slave cabins. It's the exact same thing. And now there's a road going through it because there really isn't anybody that could be at this meeting tonight to speak against it because they're all dead and gone. And I just feel like I don't know what good it'll do me, but I will never be in favor of putting a road through a park in my life ever, especially this one. And I just a couple of questions. You know, when you mentioned that there was little impact, like, did you use the Phase 1 archaeological study that was done to make those determinations, or how did you?
I'm not sure, Mr. O'Rourke. We'll have to give you some more detail on that.
Okay. I would urge everyone, and I'm sure you've seen it, I mean, and it's a public document, but to read that is amazing. And I have copies, I have maps, I have all of it, but it lets you know what that site was. And there are, you know, there are things that say not significant, significant, need further study.
That's right.
And I just wondered where the line was in determining the route's okay. And I'll say that, and I'm just gonna say a couple more things because I want to go fast. 330,000 people own that park. And as that road comes in, there's gonna be some pretty large orphan parcels that are never gonna be a park anymore. And I just hope that when because I feel like this is just gonna happen. You can have all the meetings you want, public input you want, but for this to come up so quick and change so quick and gonna be approved pretty soon, I think we're done. But I'm just gonna say for those that, whenever it's time to mitigate, that the people that own this park get paid for all of the land that's being taken, not just the amount that where the road is, because there will be significant acreage that'll never be able to be used by the public again. And I hope that they get an opportunity to have that reimbursed so that they then can preserve some other space, hopefully a historic space. Thank you.
Ms. Hyatt?
I was going to ask how many acres of the park are going to be affected by this.
We'll get you exactly that acreage.
You don't know?
I don't have the
Okay,
top of
you
my head,
don't
no, ma'am, I don't.
Okay. I assume this is going to go in phases, and logically, the portion on 41 would happen first, and,
You know, Councilmember Hyde, it doesn't have to. You know, at this point, we're talking about the permit that's gonna go in front of the Corps. It's not talking about the actual delivery of it and the phasing of it. That would happen in later phases once the design is more vetted than it is today.
okay. I mean, I can see that in the future, there's going to need to be something addressed as far as 4 lanes going into 2 lanes, but this seems pretty significant, so, okay, I'll just.
Ms. Corley?
Hello, thank you. So I would like to ditto what Ms. Landing said, and I also agree 100% with what Tom said about the park. I don't think I will ever be able to support going through a park like that. But I'm looking forward to hear what everybody else has to say, because we have gotten some of the most enthusiastic and passionate communication, and I think you guys are getting ready to get into that too when you meet with the homeowners association. So that's going to give you guys great feedback. And Tom, you scared me. You said this is a done deal.
No, I didn't say that. I said that's my opinion, and I'm wrong a lot.
I hope you're wrong about this one.
Yeah, I'm
Donna's
wrong
too.
all the
About
time.
this one. And then that's it. I also had the same question as Laura, exactly how much of the park will be eaten up by this. But thank you.
Ms. Whitley?
You know, my fellow council members have all spoken so eloquently about this, and I just want to say that I echo their concerns.
Thank you. And we'll open for public comment. I think everybody knows I was on council when we voted against local consent for 7A. And what the proof in the pudding is, where does that differ from 7B going forward? Now, we are bumping up against our 6 o'clock council meeting. I spoke with our attorney yesterday. If you signed up, were there sign-up sheets for this?
No, sir.
No.
No, for the special meeting.
Okay,
no, sir.
all right. Anybody who doesn't get to speak in this meeting will be able to speak in public comments in our next meeting, which is very early in the agenda. But we do have to start. We may go a few minutes past 6 o'clock, but we do have to start that meeting. We have several things that are pending. So if you want to make some public comments, please understand at some point, we're going to have to adjourn this meeting. It's 2 minutes.
Yes, sir.
And we have a timer, so please, so that the most amount of people can speak, please respect the timing. Thank you.
Jane Dyerline, 1018 Lakeview Drive. The widening of Highway 41 is definitely needed. This already overburdened road has been designated an evacuation route, and a new bridge was built, a 4-lane bridge at great expense to the taxpayers, to move traffic quickly and safely. Unfortunately, the widening of 41 will negatively impact many people. Actually, it already has. Building the bridge required the county to acquire people's property. Widening Cainhoy Road has caused a sacrifice of property and heritage. The meeting tree is one example. I am sorry the Phillips community is being asked to make the same contribution already made by others to benefit many at the great expense of the taxpayer. I have praised over time the Bowman flyover. Is this a possibility for the Phillips community? Build a 5-lane road over top the existing road. This would require an entrance and exit lanes, but that might be more land manageable. Do you really believe drivers are going to exit 41, drive around Dunes West at 35 miles an hour? No. They will stay on 41 at 50 miles an hour or 45, whatever it is, and this will create a bottleneck in both directions as 41 narrows from 5 to 3. And the backup will be directly in front of the Phillips community, making travel around Phillips a nightmare. Water and drivers seek the path of least resistance. So what might look feasible on paper is not going to be a solution for anyone, least of all the Phillips community. Please consider looking at a flyover and leaving most of Phillips community untouched.
Thank you.
Hello, Kathy Aben, Abbott's Glen, Park West. And this presentation did not look like an improvement to Highway 41, but a demolition to Park West and Dunes West. There is absolutely no reason for that extra road through, there's no purpose for that road through Laurel Hill and back in that way. $187 million is grand larceny for the taxpayers. In this day and age, when people have been out of work, when our schools need the money, when our teachers could be paid more, this is totally ridiculous. How are we going to compensate people for the loss of their property for the road going through? How many, are there going to be speed bumps? Are we going to have policemen in Park West 24 and Dunes West 24/7 maintaining a 35-mile speed limit? These are just a few of my questions. Thank you.
Bruce Sadowski, Wyndham Park. First, I just want to clarify on these community meetings. It sounds like it's just meeting with the association, with the Dunes West Association. So how's that going to be community input if it's just meeting with the Park West Master and the Dunes West? There's not going to be people there to have community input. I just want to say that. The one thing I want to point out is that I heard a comment about how with the widening of Park West Boulevard up to Bessemer, well, it's going to create a bottleneck. Great. If you create a bottleneck, then it's not going to be a cut through. If Park West and Dunes West Boulevard are expanded 4 lanes all the way through from 17, you're going to get more traffic on there because it's going to create a highway running through there, connecting with this new improved 41. People moved to Park West and Dunes West Boulevard because they were communities and they were walkable. You got paths for walking, bicycles, golf carts. You've got numerous crosswalks that go through there. I even have concerns with the widening of with the widening of Park West Boulevard because I've had several times where I've seen like people stop in one lane, a kid crossing, somebody blows through, and we had that incident a few years back where the girl got hit on her bike. This is only now it's going to be all the way through there. Those roads were designed to be community roads. That's why when you get from the pool in Park West Boulevard down all the way through Dunes West Boulevard out to 17, there are a lot of curves in that road. They're very narrow lanes. That's called traffic calming. Now you're going to make that into a 4-lane highway with all those going through there. I want to know what's going to happen to protect the residents of Dunes West, like I said, with all these crosswalks. And you're not going to tell me that, oh, what improvements could you possibly do? You're going to have one light up at Ellington and the entrance to Dunes West. You've probably got 20 crosswalks that go through Park West and Dunes West that people use. Now all of a sudden, hey, we can walk along a highway here and cross at your own leisure there.
My name is Jonathan Ford. I'm with the Phillips community. There's less than 300 property owners in the Phillips community. So a lot of those comments were our sisters and brothers and friends and families that are not at home. So how can you expect 300 residents to if you're going to take a vote based on how many people comment, that's not fair. There's a park in Rivertown that sits on top of an old black graveyard. The only remaining signs of the graveyard are three or so headstones that are in the marsh. Where was the outcry then when that was destroyed? What is $57 million when you're talking about people's lives, when you're talking about their children's and their children's lives? So anyone here that thinks it's all right that you can destroy a community so you can get to where you want to go faster, then I would say you might need to check your pulse. Are we humans or are we not humans? And as far as Laurel Hill, sir, my grandmother's grandfather came from Laurel Hill. So, how is it there more of, it's just kind of crazy. This alternative does not destroy anyone's property. It does not take land from anyone. So what is $50 million when you're talking about people? Highway 41 split the Phillips communities back in the 50s. So we've already given our part. So no one else has to compromise. No one else has to give up. It says that history repeats itself. So is this another phase of the Western expansion that where the many just take away from those that are weaker or stronger? This alternative does not take property from anyone. And anyone that thinks that it's all right to do that, I would say you need to maybe think about it.
Good evening, Michael German. I live in the Snowden community, and I'm not even going to try to reiterate some of the things he said, but I believe them wholeheartedly. I also believe in some of the things that you said too, Mr. Rambo and Mr. Landing. I don't understand how you can make a decision or have them talk about things without getting you involved, but you are guilty of the same thing. That being said, a couple of things that were said, I do support this new alternative, but one thing I didn't understand, I got a question. I don't know what the speed limit was going through the Phillips community. I heard 35 going down through the new Park West Boulevard at 35 miles an hour. I think the speed limit should be lowered to that same speed going through the Phillips community. You got children and you got the same type of activities you got going on in through Park West. Those are the same types of activities will probably be going through in the Phillips community. Again, a rich history. Phillips been there long before Park West and all those other developments up north in North Mount Pleasant was a conception. Phillips been there. Phillips got a rich history. I heard you talk about Laurel, the park. Great, but again, like was just said a minute ago, what about the Phillips community? They have been there much longer than any of you. So how dare you not want to consider that? And one more little thing I think I heard, the width of is 100 feet wide or something like that for those 4 lanes to go through. But in the Phillips community, you're gonna narrow it down to 3. It's 3 lane, and I don't understand what is the concerns with all that space and with all the controls. But again, it'll be a great thing if all of us can be a part of the decision. Thank you very much.
My name is Mary Harris. I'm a resident of Dunes West. I appreciate those of you in council have mentioned the lack of process here. We were blindsided when we saw the paper on Friday We have cooperated with all of the planning process for over 3 years. We have responded every time there has been a case for asking for public comment. And I noticed in that presentation, they only mentioned the comment based on the last presentation they made, not on the previous ones when we commented on 7A and 1A. They were overwhelmingly in favor of going to straight down Highway 41, which from a common sense standpoint is going to be the fastest route and the least amount of money. And overwhelmingly against 7A, but it didn't, and even this time around, it was slightly in favor, which I think the other comments should be counted as well. And as for some of the outside comments, such as the petition from the change.org group, that was based on misinformation. It was exactly opposite. The change.org petition said that alternate 7A would improve traffic, provide more access, and be the most, but then they said the Phillips community would result in worse traffic. They had it backwards. In other words, they had it, if we had a 5-lane highway, obviously it was faster, and that's what this data said. 1A was originally chosen because greater improved traffic times, lowest overall project costs, fewer impacts on wetlands, fewer impacts on Laurel Hill County Park. So I think we definitely need a 30-day, at least a 30-day review process. We have not seen any, this is a completely new alternative. And we have not even seen the traffic studies based on it. We have in the past. So we deserve a chance. It's a huge impact on Dunes West and Park West. Not to mention all the left-hand turns we won't be able to make.
Kevin Cunane. What an outrageous cost of $187 million for Highway 41. Today's newspaper celebrated the advocacy groups in favor of cutting Dunes West and Park West in half, or into pieces, actually. What they chose not to address is the underlying bias against newcomers that is ingrained in the opposition to the common sense straight line widening. It seems certain homes are considered expendable. Sometimes people want to expend the Phillips community homes. That's wrong. If you want to expend a townhouse in Park West, that's also wrong. There's no two classes of people. It's wrong either way. Dunes West community is itself responsibly developed. It has nice open spaces, nice wide streets, private streets. It's not a drain on the town. We pay for our own drainage as a Dunes West resident. Other places, I have to pay their drainage too. But in Dunes West, we get nothing from the town for our drainage. The opposition here has become a social justice talking point, and it's just not grounded in common sense. By way of example, we're seeing so-called environmental groups advocating for a plan that destroys more acreage and wetlands and cultural sites. That's absurd. Common sense straight line widening is the way to go. Why would environmentalists favor destruction of the natural environment? Because they, like the mayor, are liberals, and they believe that their political agenda overrides common sense. And because they are betting that subdivision newer residents will not push back on this plan, well, newsflash, there's going to be a lot of pushback, and it's going to be ridiculously costly and unnecessary. In closing, I'd like to know where the mayor's been on this issue. I was on the transportation committee with him, and he fought anyone that wanted to put things on the agenda. He controlled it with an iron fist. It was ridiculous. And now he made it up to 41 for a photo op the other day, but we know that's his priority.
Hi, I am Anna Allen, 3607 Colonel Vanderhorst Circle in Dunes West. I just wanted to remind the council, I know some of y'all don't live in North Mount Pleasant. I'm a realtor, and I've lived off of 41 for over 20 years. I just want to remind you that the reason that Park West Parkway needed to become widened is because of the school traffic. Dunes West Boulevard does not need to be widened. There's no traffic. So that is just a waste of money. Also, friendly reminder, all the building is going on in Hugie, Cainhoy, Wando, off Clements Ferry Road. So this is just a very short-term use of our tax money. I'm strongly against this revised concept. I feel for the Phillips community because in some way, those of us who have lived here a long time feel that same way about a lot of things. And I understand that it's their personal home, so even more so for them. But we need to have better negotiators working on this that can reach a better compromise because this is unacceptable. I think that a lot of us sadly would rather see nothing done to 41 than see this. And with 90,000 projected cars coming on the road, I don't know if that's a safe or smart decision.
And for time purposes, the last gentleman standing up there, when we get to you, we will have to go to, after you speak, we'll have to go to our 6 o'clock, and then others who want to speak can speak in those public comments.
Hi, my name is Daniel Blomberg. I'm on Park West Boulevard in the Chauncey's Court Division. You heard from Bruce earlier, who's our HOA president. You guys have a tough decision. I heard the presentation earlier that you have an important say in what's going to happen in one of these Mount Pleasant roads here, which is right outside my home. And it's important that the decision that we arrive at here does respect the Phillips community. I oppose the revised concept, but I do support the time that you're taking to think about this because we need to treat people fairly. And I don't know what the solution is. There's a lot of considerations that I don't know anything about. So my purpose right now is just to tell you about one of those considerations. And I live on a real small street, Chauncey's Court. We have 37 kids on that street. Most of them are 10 or younger. This is one of them. Several more back over here. And they've got signs outside if y'all want to see them. And you know, the issue for us is if we put a 4-lane highway over there, we've got no other access, no other way to get out of our neighborhood. And so every time one of our kids wants to take a walk, they're going to be walking across the highway. And every time we want to pull out of the neighborhood, we're going to have to take a right-hand turn. We can't take a left-hand turn anymore. Every time we want to come home, we're going to have to come back in another way. And there's a division right across the street from us. It's going to face a lot of trouble too. They'll have a lot of noise, a lot of traffic. It'll cut off their ability to be able to access the things they moved to the neighborhood for. And that's true for some of the other developments that are right alongside the road. So again, y'all have a lot of things that you have to factor in. I'm not trying to tell you what to do, just letting you know one of the things that matters for us. Thank you for taking the time to think about it. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Russ Smith. I live in Dunes West on Pignatelli Crescent. I, like others, have a major concern with the process that we've seen fold out in the past week. I think the county team did an exemplary job up until that point with following a solid process, following the NEPA Act, and being transparent and open with the public. When I saw the county council last week say that they were going to vote on whether or not to move this option forward 14 days after they announced it, giving the public only that much time and with not having disclosed a lot of the information that had been disclosed about other options yet, it just seems like there's something that is not being done properly. So my question is, where's the fire? Why do we have to do this so quickly? Another observation is that the county has said that a 3-lane road will accommodate 18,000 vehicles a day, and that the corridor of the existing 41 will have to deal with like 48,000 by the end of the service life of the highway, or of this project. So I don't know how many vehicles travel on Dunes West Boulevard and Park West Boulevard today, but I think it's a lot less than 30,000. From my point of view, the issue is not so much widening those roads as it is the amount of traffic that out of necessity will have to go there because of the congestion where the 4 lanes go down to 2 through Phillips community. So I would like to see some additional information that we've seen on the other alternatives to digest and study and provide feedback on before this is voted on and approved. It just needs to be slowed down a little bit. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Richard Habersham, and I live in the Phillips community. Let me start off with thanking Ms. Landing and Ms. Chapman for reaching out to us, a while back about this issue. Back in 1999, when this was a long-range plan, about widening Highway 41. Mayor Holman told me, he said, well, we'll be dead and gone for this plan to be implemented. That's what he said. He said, well, don't worry about it. Have y'all been on the board during that time? He said, well, this will never happen in my lifetime. Well, it's my lifetime. I'm still here. My kids are still here. The resident of the Phillips community is still here. So now, I hear in Dunes West and Park West saying that they're not the cause of the problem. If you come on Highway 41 in the afternoon, from Joe Rouse Road back to Highway 17, that's the problem. This plan here, we're gonna take the traffic that's going into Dunes West and Park West. We always say that we will, we accept some of the traffic, but why should we accept all of the traffic? Anyone y'all just come down 41 and you'll see where the traffic is going at. Right at Joe Rouse Road, when everybody trying to make that right turn. Well, they say that they want they can't make a left turn. Well, we can't make a left turn right now because of the traffic. Not the traffic that we caused, but the traffic that the subdivision on 41 caused. Other part of this is, Mr. O'Rourke, you said about Laurel Hill Park. Well, I'm here to tell you, most black folks around in Mount Pleasant area don't hold Laurel Hill Park very highly. Because I know some people that lived on Laurel Hill Park. That's my time?
Yes.
All right.
Call me later.
Oh, and I'll tell you some stories about Laurel Hill Park.
All right.
Yes, and historical part of it is no historical part in Laurel Hill. Philip is getting ready to be on the National Register.
We disagree,
Yeah, well, facts is facts.
and I'll bring you some.
My name is Bob Brimmer. I'm a resident of Park West. Thank you very much. I was always wondering what it was going to take to bring me back to this room, and I think we found it. I want to just say, first off, thank you all for your comments. I think you all get it. You're reading your emails, you understand. There's a lot of concerns with this project. And I'm not going to get into all of those tonight because most of those are county related, but there are some things relating to the town that I think we need to talk about. One of those is that this town has invested over $10 million already and $3 million in the future to keep Park West Boulevard and Dunes West Boulevard free flowing from 17 to 41. That includes no lights. This project is going to ruin all that. It's going to take all that money and create backups. So we already have a huge financial investment in this, and we're going to lose the roundabout. By the way, the roundabout at Bessemer was probably the best transportation infrastructure project this town has ever done. It was not a light. The town pushed for years for that to be a light. We pushed back and said the roundabout's the way to go. That has worked successfully, and we're getting ready to undo that with this project. Keep that in mind. Secondly, this project, as proposed, would require, I believe, town approval to work on Dunes West Boulevard. It also would require, if I see it correctly, the town's approval to take this road through town property to connect to Park West Boulevard. So I don't know whether the town has veto power over this based on those things or not, but that may be something for legal to investigate, is whether or not the town does have the right to say, we don't want these things taken from the town or used by the town. It's nice to see you all again. I'm sure
You know
I'll
the
see
drill.
you shortly. Thank you.
All right, and our last comment for this, and then we'll get on with our monthly meeting.
My name is David Gutman. I live in Ellington Woods and Dunes West. My question here is, why are we even bothering with Dunes West, Park West, or with the Phillips community? Why are we bothering any of these communities? You have plenty of vacant land just north of Carolina Park. Why can't you build a road where you don't affect anybody? It would be so easy, you won't have to go through any of these issues. The environmental issues would be the same. The cost would be roughly the same. You could connect up with a road when you cross the river. I don't understand the logic, putting one neighbor against another neighbor. Phillips community, the people in Phillips community are the neighbors to Dunes West, to Park West. We should be in harmony. We should not be fighting among ourselves. But why can't we use some common sense? It seems like we've gotten away from that. Mr. Chapman, you sent me an email. I thank you for the email that you sent me. You addressed the Mount Pleasant Way. Mount Pleasant Way does not address vehicular traffic. To expand the road, either in the Phillips community or in the Dunes West community, makes no sense. If you build another road north of here, you'll divert traffic of that 90,000 that was projected to take place on Highway 41. The traffic would roughly remain the same, if not go down. And when people get used to using the other road, that would pick up. It would bypass everything. I would make everyone happy. What I have to say is, please, if you have the power to do something, please look into it. And if not, get to the people who can look into it, because nobody needs this. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We're going to adjourn this meeting. Highway 41 is not on the agenda for our monthly meeting that begins next, but we do have public comment, and you're welcome to speak in that period if you would like. Anything? We do not know. It's in the county's hands at this point. Nothing further on this agenda. This meeting is closed.
Yeah, you gonna let us go? You gonna let us go use the bathroom?
Yeah, y'all want to take a quick break?
Yeah.
We'll take about a 5-minute break before we open the next meeting.